OSHA, what do we call this? OSHA expert watches Smash Bros. Owes millions of dollars in OSHA violations. Do I flash my safety credentials up there? As you guys know, I'm a safety professional, and really curious to see safety professional and gaming content. It's very
than on the battlefield.
How to say? It's one of the only places where my interests intersect. So let's check this shit out.
I'm Brian David Gilbert, safety fan and bureaucratic
safety fan. Okay,
please address me as such. And I've spent the last week and a half poring over the regulations of the United States Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, also known as OSHA. I'm here to hold Super Smash Bros. To account, because when you take 70+ beloved characters and force them to fight for our entertainment, the least you can do is make sure the buildings are up to code. So let's go ahead and find every OSHA violation in every stage in Super Smash Bros.
That's an OSHA violation right there, bro. You get laughed off a fucking job site if you're wearing hard hats like that, bro.
First, let's explain the process. We have to start by choosing the correct regulations. And unfortunately, there isn't an OSHA guide to blood sport, so we're gonna just go with construction, Form 1926. Because that's close enough. The main thing to point out here is 1926.10 subsection A. I'll read an excerpt for you so you can understand the basic concept of this video, and also the hellscape I had to slog through the past week. No contractor or subcontractor contracting for any part of the contract work, that's a real line, shall require any laborer or mechanic employed in the performance of the contract to work in surroundings or under working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous.
That is true.
Basically, we're here to build a safer experience for these characters, because when you walk into an unknown space, I want the first question on your mind to be, am I safe to smash? There are roughly 350 regulations in Form 1926. How many pages is that?
There's so many regulations. This actually goes crazy.
Don't worry, this is just a visual aid. They're all blank. I wouldn't waste paper like that. Most of these regulations are irrelevant, but I still had to read all 600.
Bro, I'm such a fucking dork. I'm here. I'm like, get to the fucking regulations, bro. Like, we're 2 minutes into the video. I want to see some actual OSHA citations
in order to know which ones to cut.
That's pretty entertaining, though.
Reminds me, this video idea came from commenter nshady16. So if you have an unraveled idea, why don't you go ahead and leave me a comment? And thanks, nshady16,
I got OSHA brain rot.
for making me read 684 pages of OSHA regulations. You piece of garbage! So I cut out all of the regulations that were just definitions, unrelated to stages, non-mandatory, redundant, or about personnel safety, because again, we're not talking about hard hats, we're talking about the stages themselves. Unfortunately, this also meant I had to cut the entirety of subsection R, steel erection. So there goes like 80% of the jokes in this video. Out of those 350 regulations, we're left with 46 that actually relate to Smash Bros. Stages. And again, we're just using the 103 stages that you
I never thought about like looking at the
stages
stages themselves as opposed to the personnel. Because I mean, really, OSHA's dictating work sites, right? If people aren't working, it's hard to justify it going under OSHA reg, but I'm curious to see how they spin this.
And any secret stages that pop up later.
I guess maybe you're arguing the fires are working. Sure.
That's probably just an underground fighting ring, which is a different form of illegality. I'm going to explain all of these OSHA violations as we go along, but I just want you to keep in mind that there is a maximum penalty of $12,934 per OSHA violation. We'll get into that.
Changes every year, so I think it's actually higher now.
On the board. Bam! That's all the OSHA regulations we'll be discussing today. Let's start with the codes that pretty much every stage violates. General safety and health provisions. I threw these three here because they're just dangerous in general, and they don't have that many other specific violations. Safety training and education. Seems like most of these people don't have safety training, especially—
How do we know they don't do safety training? How do you know there's not orientation? I mean, if you're an OSHA inspector, you'd audit this stuff, right? But that's a fair, I don't know about that, right? I mean, like, if you look at like when they enter the stage, it's obviously like there's some protocol where they get put into a teleporter, you know, maybe before the teleporter, they have a fucking OSHA training.
Violations, safety training and education. Seems like most of these people don't have safety.
I think I'd argue this one. I don't know about that.
Training, especially in—
Yeah, it's weird because like, a lot of, because if you look at some of these, right? Safety training, recording and reporting of injuries. Yeah, I guess this is assuming these people are working. So if you assume the fires are working, then it's definitely a different angle because they're getting injured and therefore, like, wait, how do you know we're not reporting the injuries though? I'm just saying they could have an OSHA log. Why not? Means of egress?
Seems like most of these people don't have.
How do we violate me? Oh, I see. So the argument they're making is that. So the idea is like, but in certain workspaces, like confined space or other areas, you have to be able to enter and egress, which means to exit a workplace properly. And I guess you could argue here, it's like, how do you get down from the fucking tower? I don't know if teleporters count, but that's a good point. You know, I'll give you that one.
Safety training, especially in moray towers where they literally shoot guns at you as you fly into the stage. Recording and reporting of injuries. We Fit Studio is a gym, and so I would expect it to have paperwork if one of the gym members gets injured. Unfortunately, all of the gym members get injured. Means of egress. In most places, you have to have exit signs.
So that's interesting. I'm almost certain that if you operate a gym and let's say I operate a gym and some person that's working there, like that's working out and is just a consumer of my gym, gets injured, like I don't know, they break their spine because they're squatting too much. That's not an OSHA violation. I mean, yeah, maybe they could sue. Maybe it comes under like civil like negligence or something like that. But it doesn't actually go in your OSHA log. That's different.
And also,
that's not consumer protections is not the how I say jurisdiction of OSHA.
That don't involve plummeting to your death. Employee emergency action plans. It's very important to have an emergency action plan, especially if that emergency action plan is for if a mountaintop breaks off and slides into the ocean. Look at this polar bear.
They might have
no
an action plan for that.
Going on. Accident prevention signs and tags. Just put one wet floor sign anywhere, and I'll let it slide, okay? Duty to have fall protection. I mean, there's no fall protection. How hard is it to put a harness on someone?
That is true.
Requirements for stairways and ladders. Anything above 19 inches of elevation needs a staircase or a ladder. Not everyone can double jump. Sanitation. Most of sanitation deals with potable versus non-potable water, but a lot of it also deals with toilets, and I have yet to find a Smash Brothers stage that includes a restroom. And I need to know where Donkey Kong pees. Hey. So those ones pretty much...
Oh, that's the argument? There's no fucking restrooms? I guess so.
Everyone gets wrong, which means that we're...
I mean... It could just be off stage, right?
At about 900 violations already.
There's no regulation that says thou shall have a restroom 50 feet from thy workplace, right? That doesn't exist as long as it's like... I'm sure there's like terminology they use in the regular like accessible, right, which is open to interpretation. But I mean, it could be off screen. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yikes. I feel a bit bad hitting all of these stages so hard, so I'll be a bit lenient for 1926.50 medical services and first aid. You have to provide first aid if someone has been hurt, and I'll just let the Max Tomato fulfill that requirement. 451 states...
You know, I think they provide first aid. I mean, they come back to life, right? Like, what's better first aid than that?
That you can't be using unstable objects as scaff. I'm gonna call all of these scaff because there's no OSHA guideline for levitating floors. Jumping on an awning causes it to break in on it. That's totally irresponsible. 452 states that you need to have cross-bracing.
Did they actually die?
Congo Falls has so many things that aren't cross-braced. 453 is all about aerial lifts. You need to stand firmly on the ground.
I guess that's an aerial lift.
Stop jumping. Housekeeping. You gotta clean out the debris. I don't care that you got a big dog running around behind you. Put the blocks away. That's debris. Put your toys away, honey. Occupational noise exposure. I'm ignoring the fact that they're fighting on top of
they
a
definitely
jet,
get fucked by some
instead thinking
noise
about
exposure.
how loud those jets are.
That's a good point.
Put some earplugs in.
That's a good point.
Gases, vapors, fumes, dusts, and mists. All of these stages have clouds that you can stand on, which means they're incredibly dense. I don't care what it's made of. You shouldn't be breathing that in.
Are you breathing it in, though?
Those torches don't do anything. I'm gonna trip and stub my toe. Ventilation. A lot of these stages need more airflow, better ventilation, but in PictoChat 2, there is too much ventilation in the form of this man who blows air. Who hired this man? I don't want him.
I don't think there's many stages that need ventilation. Usually you need ventilation to prevent against some type of health hazard, whether it be a dust or some type of other toxic material in the workplace. Too much ventilation does not fall under that reg.
Hazardous waste.
But it could fall under general duty because it's a fucking, I don't know, death hazard, right? Like...
operations and emergency response. In Flat Zone X, someone spills oil and then just leaves it there. 1926.150, 151, 152, and 154 are all about fire protection. Most of these regulations are pretty self-explanatory. You need to have a fire extinguisher.
Yep.
It needs to be readily available. You can't have ignition hazards hanging around.
That's a good point.
You can't store more than 25 gallons of a flammable liquid in one place. By the way, I'm including magma as a flammable liquid. I know they mean petroleum substances, but I think that's just a lack of imagination on OSHA's part. But 154 is all about temporary heating devices.
So the whole point of a flammable liquid, you know what, I'll let it slide.
And how they shouldn't be kept in enclosed spaces. Kind of like the Charmander at the top of Saffron City. The general requirements of electrical equipment. They should be kept
Do I work for OSHA? No, but I work with
cause
OSHA.
Death or harm to employees. The large airships flying
I've been
around
subject to
you in these
like
stages are not only
inspections and
electrical
that sort of stuff.
equipment,
But no, I work
they
for
are
private
designed
industry.
to harm and kill you. Violation. Specific purpose equipment and installations. This is all about elevators and escalators. WarioWare Inc. is one big elevator. You don't need me to tell you it's broken. Helicopters. Is a shy guy a helicopter? I think so. You're not supposed to be working underneath hovering craft.
That's
even
true.
if they're bringing you fruit.
Don't want it to fall.
That includes the stages that move back and forth, and also all of the scrolling stages, which are the fastest way to die in Super Smash Bros. Tools and material shall be secured to prevent movement. Don't move equipment unless it's safe. They're on a live racetrack. All of the things are moving. Marine operations and equipment.
There's mobile equipment standards. You could probably say them for that too.
Bring on a barge, and you have to provide a walkway
creative.
between wharfs and boats. Paper Mario dissolves into a boat, but that doesn't count as a walkway, and there is not a single life ring at the Donkey Kong residence. I don't care how good you are at surfing, Donkey Kong. Underground construction. If you're working underground, you're required to have a 5-person rescue team on call. And although Super Smash Bros. Ultimate does allow up to 8 players, none of them will save you. Working on
that's actually not quite true.
But that doesn't count as a walkway, and there is not a single life ring at the construction. If you're working underground, you're required to have a 5-person rescue team.
Is it 5? So I don't work construction. I work general industry, right? And you're not required. Like, I assume by underground they're referring to a confined space, which is, you could argue underground, right? Like, I mean, if you're working in a basement, that's technically underground, but it's not a confined space because it's meant for occupancy. That place looks like it's meant for occupancy, so is it confined space? Probably not. You also do need 5 people on call. I believe you need 2. I don't know. I forget the exact regs for.
And although
on call.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate does allow
construction
up to 8
standard might be different, but the confined space definition still the same, right? Like, just if there's like a fucking gambling den or like a restaurant downstairs, you don't need 5 people on call to pull people out, right?
Working on or near exposed energized parts. Does a Pokemon count as an energized circuit? According to OSHA, yes. 1926.1052 is all about stairways. If you have a stairway that rises more than 40 inches, you need to have a handrail. I imagine that Mario is about 40 inches tall, and this is at least 4 or 5 times his height. Violation, 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 violation.
Sure.
Confined spaces. These are places where you are building where it's hard to get in and out of. You need to specify the acceptable entry conditions. There are no acceptable entry conditions into a space with a pit full of acid. Disposal of waste materials.
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
If you are dropping waste materials more than 25 feet, you need to be putting it in a chute.
That's actually fair. That's true.
It is all debris that is falling infinitely. And
actually, speaking of ventilation, bro, you would, if this is acid, like legitimately,
into a.
These guys are both dead. Straight up, the fucking fumes from this are gonna kill them both. I never thought about that, but yeah, they're getting fucking smoked by the fumes, even if they don't touch the acid.
With a pit full of acid.
They're getting cooked.
Disposal of waste materials. If you are dropping waste materials more than 25 feet, you need to be putting it in a chute. Clock tower It is all debris that is falling infinitely, and it should be in a chute. 850 is about preparing the demolition building. You're supposed to remove any glass that could break. And in Dracula's castle, Death flies through the window and breaks the glass. I couldn't give a shit about Death.
Cold acid, bro. They literally fucking catch on fire, bro.
Space with a pit full of
like I don't know how cold this acid is. I mean, yeah, sure, of course. The higher the temperature, the more volatile it's going to be, the higher the vapor pressure, all that shit, right? More vapor pressure equals more molecules of air equals more exposure. But I mean, this much acid, it doesn't matter if this is room temperature, it doesn't matter if it's chill a little bit, you're fucked.
Acid. A lot of things in Shadow.
You're fucked. That's just way too much acid for someone to handle.
Firing the blast. You shouldn't be in the proximity of the blast, nor should you be in the barrel that is causing the blast and shooting you off into space. 1926.53 and 54 are about different types of radiation. Ionizing, which is nuclear, and non-ionizing, which is like lasers. Final Destination is just flying around through random parts of space. There's no protection.
Where do we have ionizing radiation?
Nor should
so as someone that's like a radiation safety officer, I've actually also been a lazy safety officer. What are we referencing as ionizing and non-ionizing?
That violates this. It's literally the only scene when they explode the barrel 3 and 50 causing the blast and shooting you off into space. 1926.
I mean, we're not saying this is ionizing radiation. I mean, I guess it could technically have both, but if it's going to be a visible laser like this, it's almost certainly non-ionizing, right?
Point 53 and 54 are about
like a laser pointer, for example. That's non-ionizing. That's just like a fucking super laser pointer. I don't know.
Different types of
yeah,
radiation.
Sure. We can. I'm not gonna fucking question
nuclear,
it. It can be ionizing, sure.
Which is like lasers. Final Destination is just flying around through random parts of space. There's no protection. You should be less worried about getting punched into oblivion and more worried about the cancers. In Gamer, your mom fires lasers at you when she sees you gaming. I'm not here to discuss her qualifications.
What the fuck? I've never seen this stage.
You are not allowed to fire those lasers.
That's so funny.
At employees. Just let me game, Mom. Ladders.
That's true.
Suzaku Castle.
Technically, you can fire some lasers at employees. They just have to be low powered enough. Obviously, if it's something that's going to make you fall back, push you back 4 feet, yeah, it's obviously too strong of a laser.
Those ladder rungs need to be uniform. They need to be evenly spaced. They need to not be broken. I know that ladder is there for aesthetic purposes, but that is a violation, Suzaku Castle! You cannot hide your ladders from me! That leaves us with one stage.
Wait, what? What are they saying?
A uniform. They need to be.
Oh yeah, that ladder is fucking shit. Holy crap!
I know that ladder is there for aesthetic purposes.
Yeah, that's a violation.
That is a violation! Stage that is OSHA compliant. It's almost as if it was built to allow people to fight in it safely. Sakurai. I know you worked so hard on this game, and I appreciate it so much, but you could have stopped at just one stage. You should have. It was built.
Is there really no OSHA violations here? How are we gonna say?
They need to not be broke. The most stage that is OSHA.
How are we gonna say in this stage that they now magically have training and they now magically get first aid? I don't know. That's at least 2, right? Assuming it's the same I find it hard to believe that like every other stage that the Super Smash Bros. Conglomeration, because again, this is OSHA, it regulates industry. They don't have first aid, they don't have training, but now when they enter the fighting ring, they do? I don't know about that. Where's the bathrooms? Where's the bathrooms? I think this OSHA inspector is kind of biased. I'm just saying.
It's almost as if it was built to allow people
Does the ceiling platform fall into the ring? Probably.
Sakurai. I know you worked so hard on this game, and I appreciate it so much, but you could have stopped at just one stage. You should have stopped at
thanks so much for the
one stage. Finally, weighing in at 23 OSHA violations.
Okay.
It's 75 meters. I'm not 100% sure if
they got ladders,
so many
though.
Violations just because it is a construction site, so it was easier for me to find all of the flaws with it. Obviously, Brinstar is probably more dangerous, but I don't know how to categorize Mother Brain. The thing that pushed it over the edge was material hoists, personnel hoists, and elevators. They need to be enclosed at all times. People can just jump on and off of these material hoists over there. That's so irresponsible.
But
There's
how-
fire.
Wait,
There
we
are
can't say
jacks
something's
that
both a material hoist and a personnel hoist, right? It's either meant for one or the other.
thrown across the stage.
Knocking down the
There is a
22.
large ape. Again, I could not categorize that, but I know he shouldn't have been there. 75 meters is the most OSHA violating stage.
The person
in
not
Smash
maintained, none of
Brothers.
the
And
regs,
if you have
no.
to get rid of one of them, that's the one you should get rid of first, and then you should get rid of.
Because something meant for personnel has to have a higher degree of safety, right? Than something meant for material. So
the
it
rest
is
of them too,
separated.
because again, OSHA does not stop after one stage. Let's remember back to the beginning of this video when I talked about violation penalties. I mentioned that every serious violation of OSHA is $12,934 in fines. I forgot $29,336.
Yeah, so there's a difference between willful and serious. So the idea is that like if the employer if they can prove without a doubt that the employer willfully violated, which basically means that they knew and they didn't give a shit, then OSHA has a lot less lenience against it.
Per violation. I am going to pretend that I found all of these violations on the same day, and that they didn't have a chance to fix them all, so therefore they are not repeated. But that's still 1,317 violations, or $17,034,078.
Yeah, exactly.
in fines.
Yeah,
Which is
willful's
why
hard to
I'm
prove.
sending you this
Repeats a
video,
lot more common.
Masahiro Sakurai. Surely you can't afford $17 million in fines. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. OSHA doesn't need to hear about all this evidence I've compiled. All you must do is send me $50 US. I'm in a real tough situation right now, and I just
Oh my god, it's like the fucking real OSHA. This is actually legitimately what happens with OSHA, bro.
please. Also,
Yeah,
you
first
could-
of all, I think that's the highest ever OSHA violation or OSHA fine. Like, I've seen millions. I've seen 7-figure OSHA violations. Yeah, but almost always it gets reduced, right? Well, we'll say highest OSHA fine ever. Are they? Wait, really? I guess that makes sense. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess BP. Mexico oil spill is A1. Considering that, how do I say, it probably caused billions in damages, that's still, this is a fucking drop in the bucket to BP, right? It's actually kind of crazy. OSHA fines really do not matter most of the time. Considering a lot of this shit is just a fucking drop in the bucket. It's actually kind of unfortunate. The amount of understaffing that OSHA has, and the amount of, companies that just don't give a shit about safety because there's very little risk. Not risk. There's definitely risk, right? But yeah, we'll call it risk. There's not that much risk because the chances of OSHA actually auditing you is pretty slim. And even if they audit you, like, and they fine you, like, you can get the fine reduced, right? Yeah, is it ethical? Of course not, right? There's many arguments. I make the argument as a safety professional that it's actually beneficial to your business to have a robust safety program, right? Because you can, one, obviously reduce fines, but it's mostly, you're going to have increased employee satisfaction, increased employee productivity. You're going to have less turnover. You're going to be able to be a safe company, which therefore garners you more business, right? You're going to have less time with employees out, which means that you'll have even more productivity. There's a lot of financial benefits to having a safety program, but it's not really avoiding OSHA fines, honestly. Yeah, a lot of it's hard. Anyways, yeah, pretty cool. I am curious to see like how much she's got reduced. BP final penalty. Oh fuck. I don't know if we'll be able to find it. But I am really curious to see like if it got reduced. I don't know. I don't have the time to look at it. Anyways, yeah, that was a banger video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Yeah, I don't know. I want to do a video like this but for Street Fighter. So if you guys want to see that, let me know and take care, y'all. Peace.